all be true.
Every word.
CIA Black Vault break-in.
Am I reading this correctly? The Kremlin bombing?
In fairness, the bomb was actually meant to kill him.
29 years after the first installment in the franchise, the latest Mission Impossible film is in theaters, and it's already secured the best open of any previous Mission Impossible movie. Nostalgia has a theme at the box office over the weekend and will be again next weekend. Lots to talk about here, and joining me now to do it is a great talker when it comes to movies and more. It's Amy Nicholson, film critic of the Los Angeles Times, also hosts the movie podcast Unspooled. And I wonder, was there an Unspooled episode when you were in Cannes recently, or was it all just work and fun and glamour?
You know, I didn't get to tape one, and while I was gone, my co-host announced that we were going to do an episode on Tommy Boy, so I really got betrayed.
Oh, man. Well, you know, Chris Farley forever, but let's just put it that way. All right, let's think a little about what we saw on Memorial Day and a record-breaking weekend. The conversation on Lilo and Stitch and the Mission Impossible movie, both really interesting. And as I just mentioned a moment ago, I mean, part of this was nostalgia, right? I mean, so many Mission Impossible films, and Lilo and Stitch, pre-existing IP, if we put it transactionally?
Very much. I mean, IP nostalgia have become such truisms right now for the industry that it's kind of surprising to remember that 3 decades ago when Tom Cruise said, hey guys, I have an idea. Why don't I do an action franchise based on this TV show from the 60s? Everybody thought he was nuts. And now that's just normal behavior. Nobody would have ever guessed that that would have worked, and also worked for 8 movies now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. What I think is interesting, though, about this wave of nostalgia is it feels like we are absolutely finally, without question, seeing the purchasing power of millennials. Like, Lilo and Stitch is not some old TV show from the 60s. It's not a product that, like, only older people heard of. Lilo and Stitch, tiny bit of perspective here, it was one of the first movies I ever reviewed, the first animated one when I was in college. So getting rebooted now, it's my generation and the generations right underneath me who are saying, we want our stuff back.
Yeah, it's such an astute observation, this sort of generational shift. And I think the success of Lilo and Stitch surprised some folks, you know, back in 2002 when it went up against Tom Cruise, also in its opening weekend for Minority Report. Didn't do as well as this one, but as you say, there's a purchasing power of a certain generation that's coming through, and this nostalgia is a big part of it. But I've also seen a lot of people talking about the impact of the family-friendly film, the PG film, something like 16, I think, coming this year almost every month except one. Lilo and Stitch, an example, but even previous successes. I mean, I took my kid to Dogman. She introduced me to the graphic novel. We went to the movie. I loved it. She loved it. It did great. Minecraft 2. What are you seeing there? Any big lessons? Is Hollywood pivoting to family-friendly and PG in some way?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, just last month, the lesson was Hollywood is pivoting towards R-rated original movies like Sinners. So the story is all over the place. But I like this version of the story more than you might expect for a film critic. You know, I'm supposed to say, like, original stuff only, which I do love. I'm supposed to give reboots a hard time just on the principle of the thing. But to be frank, we have spent most of this year worried that film going itself was becoming an act of nostalgia. So the idea that parents are taking children, they're buying popcorn, they're teaching them that movies are a great place to go hang out on the weekend, I love that. And hopefully people are going to catch a trailer to see something smaller, quirky, or more interesting that they might go back and see the next weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, and I'm speaking as someone with a 7-year-old who walks through the theaters and see, you know, the experience is familial, you see the stuff, they get lured in, then I get lured in on the back of them, so the PG movie could be the sort of Trojan horse, and then it gets an adult like me in, and then I see the, you know, posters for the quirkier stuff. But there's also a conversation about Disney and the live-action movie with Lilo and Stitch. I mean, did they figure something out here? Because there were some previous movies like Snow White, some of these others, and the Mary Poppins one, didn't do quite as well. Is there something when you talk about the generational aspect that Disney can glom onto, conventional wisdom-wise or otherwise?
That is what I'm wondering. You know, Snow White is from 1937. They've been rebooting, or 1939, they've been rebooting their classics that are from your grandmother's generation. Lilo and Stitch, I have to be surprised. I didn't realize that it was such a phenomenon among the youth until very, very, very recently. Like, this is a demographic that has a lot of purchasing power. One of the interesting statistics about this weekend and this huge success of Lilo and Stitch is that over half of the people who went to go see it weren't parents. They didn't have kids. They were adults who just wanted to go see it on their own. And I think that's fascinating, too.
That is really interesting. What does all this mean for the rest of the summer movie season, by the way? I mean, there is the Karate Kid movies coming, so there's a little nostalgia, pre-existing IP there. What are you seeing for the summer movie season and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, the closest parallel to what we just saw with Lilo and Stitch is we have How to Train Your Dragon, a live-action version of that coming out in just 2 weeks, I think. And that's almost essentially the same thing, like a post-2000 cartoon now being rebooted in live action for not really a new generation as much as the same generation who maybe will bring their kids, maybe they don't even have kids and they're just gonna, leave their dog at home and go out for the night.
One of the things I love talking to you, by the way, is your ability to blend in a sentence Tommy Boy and Can, as you did earlier. You were in Can, maybe not the Tommy Boy podcast as you wanted, but just talk a little bit about what you saw there, the big takeaways. What was the longest applause, for instance?
Well, I was there when our other Tommy Boy, Tom Cruise, was there too. They
Hey-o.
Impossible. And he got, I would say, about 7.5 minutes of applause. The LA Times had me tape it for their Instagram. I was even more impressed that he spent about half an hour on the red carpet just running up and down, waving at everybody. There was a French woman waving a chihuahua at him that was wearing his shirt on the back of it, like, look at my chihuahua. That was fun.
That's amazing.
When we're talking about like prestige, Can, there were a couple of interesting things that came out last year, just with this, a sort of like a rubric of why really Cannes matters for people who adore cinema. We had 3 of the Best Picture Oscar nominees came out of Cannes. The Substance, and also Amelia Perez, which is very polarizing, and Anora, which won. So everybody was at Cannes this year thinking, are we going to see this year's Oscar contenders? And the closest thing that probably came to it was an astonishing $23 million purchase for an indie film called Die My Love by this very independent filmmaker named Lynn Ramsey. But she made a movie starring 2 movie stars, Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson, as young parents who are not handling this new child thing very well.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's nice to get a little buyer's guide from you with that prestige stuff. So yeah, you can do Tommy Boy, you can do Lilo and Stitch, you can do Can first. You saw a lot of great stuff there, but I wonder, did you see Tom Cruise eating popcorn?
Well, they don't let popcorn in the Grand Palais. That's how fancy it is. But, oh my gosh. Those videos, he's swearing he's eating popcorn, but we also know from the last Mission Impossible, the 7th one, he's pretty good at sleight of hand. So watching his calories, I mean, who can blame him? If you have extra poundage, how are you going to be dangling on an airplane?
I mean, it's pretty impressive, the whole maneuver. He takes his stunts very seriously. I think he's taken popcorn eating as a stunt as well. If you don't know what we're talking about, you should look it up. And you should also look up Amy Nicholson, her podcast, Unspooled, her criticism on LA Times, and just generally a good hang. Amy, thanks so much for being with us. Great to see you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, always great to see you too. Amy Nicholson there from the LA Times. Lots to think about when it comes to the summer movie season and beyond. You got a little preview too, and also and also look up Tom Cruise eating popcorn. More coming up. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. For more stories in your communities, click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV for the latest information, balanced coverage, weather updates every 10 minutes, and more. We'll see you then.